What then ought I to have called that quadruped animal if it actually was a bull? The word, said the headmistress, by which you call that animal, any of the scum call it. But you, since you are here at the Institute, are not of that scum, so you should always find out how to call indecent things by names which do not sound indecent to the ear. For instance, when you saw that indecent animal and wanted your friend to look at it, you might have shouted, "Mary, look, there goes a beefsteak." Or, "Mary, look yonder, there goes something that is very good to eat when we are hungry," and so forth. From all this, poor Elizabeth became so nervous, especially as this reprimanding took place in the presence of all her friends, that she could not restrain herself and cried out with all her might, "Oh, you wretched old maids, striped hobgoblins, spawn of deepest hell! Because I called a thing by its name, you immediately begin to suck my blood. Be thrice damned." Having said these last words, she fell, as they say there, in a faint, followed in turn by the fainting of the headmistress herself and of several class mistresses and governesses. The class mistresses and governesses of this genteel institution, who had not fainted, then raised such a hubbub as really only occurs at what is called the market, where Jewesses from the town of Gurdjieff exclusively bargain. The result of it all was that when the class mistresses and governesses who had fainted revived, they then and there held in the field, under the presidency of this same headmistress of the institution, what is called a teachers' council, by whose sentence it was decided immediately on return to town to telegraph Elizabeth's father to come for his daughter, as she was expelled from the institute with loss of right to enter any other similar institute in the Russian Empire. The same day, an hour after the pupils were sent home, one of what are called the porters of the institute happened to find in the woodshed that two as yet undeveloped growing future mothers were hanging by ropes fastened to the beams. In Mary's pocket was found a note with the contents, "Together with my dear Elizabeth, I do not wish to live any longer with such nonentities as you, and I am going with her to a better world." This case then so interested me that I began, of course privately, to investigate psychoanalytically from every aspect the psyche of all the parties in this sad story. I partly elucidated, among other things, that at the moment of the manifestation of her violent outburst, there was in the psyche of poor Elizabeth what is called there chaos. And indeed it would have been astonishing if such a chaos had not been in the psyche of this as yet unconscious 13-year-old girl, who before this miserable event had always lived on her father's big estate, where she had always seen and felt the same richness of nature as on the day in the field near the city of St. Petersburg. She had been brought to that stifling, noisy city of St. Petersburg, and had been kept for a long time in an improvised box. Suddenly, she had found herself in an environment where every fresh impression evoked all kinds of memories of former pleasantly perceived sensations. On your planet, during what is called early spring, there are indeed sometimes pictures to the charm of which it is difficult not to yield. Picture to yourself the following. Afar, cows are seen at pasture. Near, at one's feet, snowdrops shyly peep out from the earth. Close to one's ear, a little bird flies by. To the right is heard the twittering of quite an unknown bird. On the left, one's sense of smell is quickened by the perfume of some also unknown flower. In short, at such moments as these, in the beings there, especially in one so young as Elizabeth, finding themselves after a long period of oppressive existence in a suffocating city, in the midst of such a rich abundance of all kinds of unaccustomed impressions. The mental associations evoked from a natural being joy would naturally arise of themselves from every external thing perceived. Elizabeth must have felt this especially strongly, having lived, as I've already said, before the Institute on her father's large estate, which lay far from the already exceedingly abnormal conditions of city vanities. Thanks to this, every impression newly perceived by her would naturally call up previous childhood memories, each connected in its turn with various other pleasant incidents. So it is not difficult to picture to yourself that the sudden appearance of that quadruped animal called bull, such as she had seen at home on the farm, and which had enjoyed there the affection of all the children, who secretly even took it bread from the table, was to this as yet unformed, impressionable young girl a shock for the corresponding associations under the influence of which she, being full of feeling of sincere happiness, still unspoiled by the abnormally established conditions of being existence, instantly wished to share her happiness with her bosom friend who was some distance off, and shouted to her to look at that dear bull. Now, I ask you, how should she have called this quadruped being, since it actually was a bull? Really, beefsteak? As advised by the esteemed headmistress of this esteemed higher educational institution, which existed there especially for the education of children, according to the barbarous system of theirs existing there to their misfortune also at the present time. As you see, my boy, intending to tell you a little more about the three-brained beings who have interested you and who breed on that continent of North America, I have, by the way, said a great deal in general about the three-brained beings arising and existing on all the continents of that peculiar planet. I don't think you will have any grievance against me for this, since you have at the same time managed to learn many more facts elucidating the details of their strange psyche, concerning specially what is called the degree of degeneration of the common presences of those who compose this contemporary large group on the continent America, in respect of the loss of possibilities for the acquisition of being nearer to the normal being of three-brained beings in general. I can tell you something somewhat consoling for them, namely, that in my opinion there remains among them the largest percentage of beings in whose presences the said possibility is not entirely lost. Although this new group is composed of and still continues to be increased by three-brained beings breeding on the continent of Europe, where for such beings with the aforementioned possibilities it is already necessary, particularly in present times, as our wise teacher Mullah Nasruddin says on such occasions, to look specially with the most powerful electric arc lamps. Nevertheless, I repeat, in this large group there is a larger percentage of such beings than on the continent of Europe. It seems to me that this has happened because there have migrated there, and still now migrate from the continent of Europe, beings chiefly from among what are called the simple beings, who are not, so to say, the